Hello there, and my condolences, I suppose. Because of a minor disagreement among the gods in charge of reincarnation, your soul has just been reassigned from the modern world to the year 93 AD. You've landed in the body of Gaius, who lives on the 4th floor of Insula, number 92, somewhere in the sweaty heart of the Aventine district. Your profession is uncertain, but it involves more sweating than most careers should. You're known for 2 things. First, you once smelled burnt bread from 2 streets away. Second, you once shouted, "Thief!" after catching your own reflection in a bucket of dishwater. Your most treasured belongings include a pair of wooden sandals tied with strips of cloth and chewed 3 times by mice yet still bravely holding on. Also, a dream. Not a grand one. Just the simple wish to use the toilet without having to count how many people are ahead of you in line. You won't be needing any luggage. Trust me on this, take a look down, go on. Let me guess. You're wearing a tunic made of scratchy burlap, the kind that feels like a teenage memory gone wrong. And your apartment is so small, if you want to stretch your legs, you'll have to rest them on your roommate's shoulder. Today is a beautiful Roman day, which means there's still morning fog, the horse manure smells freshly laid, and from downstairs comes the eternal argument that has echoed since the founding of civilization. Who finished the cheese? And that's just the morning. A moment worthy of inscription on temple walls. But hang tight, because in the next 24 hours you'll experience the following highlights. How to clean your behind with a communal stick that nobody bothers to disinfect. How to eat bread without cracking a tooth. The secret is to stop biting and just hold it in your mouth, whispering silent hopes to the universe. How to flee from a mugging in a dead-end alley, only to get mugged again at the exit for the sake of fairness. And most importantly, how to love life even when life itself is being incredibly uncooperative. Getting excited, yet stop forcing that smile. I can tell your gut is already whispering that vague little feeling, something along the lines of, maybe I should log out of this trip before it escalates. But then again, who knows? Maybe all it takes is one day of being throttled by Roman reality for you to start missing your 21st century toilet more than your best friend. Yes, you're in ancient Rome. This is a period historians lovingly refer to as politically stable, which roughly translates to whoever yells louder wins the debate. You have no phone, no toothpaste, and there's a good chance you'll have to share a polite nod with the person who just used the cleaning stick before you. But don't worry, I'll be here with you. Not to help, of course, but to narrate everything that happens to you, including the part where someone who once sanitized their hands before touching a grocery cart ends up surviving in a place with no bathroom doors, but 14 official punishments for sandal theft. So take a deep breath if your nose still has the courage, and step into your new life. Step into a typical day in the world of Gaius, the only man on his street who can spell his name but still ends up last on the list for free bread. Welcome to what we call a typical day in Rome. Of course, by typical we mean something that would not be considered normal in any timeline known to mankind. Now sit tight. Bread is about to fly and time itself is chuckling in the corner. Let's begin. Gaius, it's your cue. Good morning. Or at least that's what people here like to call this hour. That fragile moment when the light has not yet softened but the smell of life has already begun to ferment. You barely open your eyes from a half-asleep daze and are instantly greeted by a vibrant symphony. The sound of scratching heads, scratching bellies, even scratching at the communal blanket. Someone even takes the opportunity to scratch at a 3-way relationship that has long outlived its knots. It is a melody of skin, lively, honest, and in no need of rehearsal. The air sways lazily in the attic room where the floor has just warmed up from the body heat of 8 feet and 3 unfinished hopes. The surrounding scent, or rather what should be called the scent of presence, stretches evenly in a vertical direction. It does not float. It lingers. It asks no permission, but hides nothing. A kind of scent that if bottled and gifted would clearly send the message that you hold a grudge. No one speaks, yet everyone understands. A single deep breath is already more intimate than any morning greeting ever spoken. You quietly roll off the mat that miraculous item woven from grass fiber's stray hair, a few scraps of time and many traces of meals now part of history. It is not soft, but it is patient. It is not clean, but it holds a past. You slip through a crack in the wall where the plaster has crumbled. Just enough light slips through to show that hope should turn left. The crack is narrow and long-shaped like a bad decision lodged between 2 winters. The person ahead has not fully slipped out when the one behind gently bumps their forehead. This is a common form of greeting in underfunded insular neighbourhoods, and so your day begins. No brushing hair, no brushing teeth, only one pure and powerful desire to find a spot in the public latrine before your internal organs file an urgent petition. You step out into the street with the spirit of someone who has just escaped the palm of suffocation and now walks straight into the soul of history. The morning breeze rises from the stone-paved alleys carrying a blend of early horse manure wet shoes from yesterday and a touch of imaginary mint you made up for comfort. In the distance, voices call out, crumbled bread, sour wine, and an old man swearing in a mix of Greek and the sighing Latin of tired locals. You squeeze past a group of donkeys chewing over life philosophy, dodge a woman arguing with her husband using a dried fish, then turn into a narrow alley that leads to a place every resident fondly refers to as the centre of emotional release. The sanctuary of letting go, or more simply, the latrina. The latrina has no sign, no instructions yet. It is always crowded and surprisingly warm. Picture a long row of stone benches, smooth and cold like a mother-in-law's face, arranged close together in the spirit of spatial generosity regardless of volume. There are no walls, no doors, no reason to feel shy. The moment you sit down, you join a community with no divisions of wealth, profession or digestive circumstance. To your left is a blacksmith discussing iron prices. To your right, a young man whistles while filing his nails with pumice. In front, a child miscounts their own toes, and right behind you is the soul of the entire ritual, the tersorium. A long wooden stick, its head wrapped in a worn-out sponge, has journeyed with humanity through ages of hardship. It rests in a bucket of salty water as quietly resigned as a bowl of soup that knows it was never meant to be served. No one calls it by name, but everyone needs it. It says nothing, yet always seems to look at you at the exact moment you wonder, do I really need to go through with this? And so you sit. Cold stone seeps from your tailbone up into your thoughts. The air turns quiet in a way that is not entirely reassuring. Everyone stays focused. No judging stares. Just a few polite throat clearings to encourage the process. The smell defies naming. But if you breathe deeply, you might learn more about yourself than you intended to. You try to maintain posture, eyes fixed at a casual 45-degree angle, and tell yourself this is civilization. This is community. This is a collective experience. A few minutes later, you leave the latrina. Your eyes are slightly misty. Your back feels a little stiff, but your heart, to be honest, feels light. You walk on with the calm of someone who has passed the morning's toughest trial with dignity and just enough mental detachment to avoid reliving it. No one sees you off. Only the tersorium leans gently as if to say until next time. After a silent battle with the latrina and that symbolic stick of shared suffering, you return with a weightless heart and a stomach that rumbles like fate knocking on your door. It is time. Breakfast awaits you. Not laid out on a plate, but crouched in a defensive stance. At a tiny stall tucked by the street, or at least what vaguely qualifies as one, an old woman stands behind a tray of bread that resembles sacred relics reluctantly granted permission to be eaten. Each loaf rests motionless, armoured like something from a dragon's back, staring down anyone bold enough to try picking one up. Go ahead, take a bite, I dare you. But holiness you do not yet possess. You choose the one that looks the friendliest, round with cracks like the forehead of someone who has weathered too many storms but still believes in kindness. Your hand trembles as you lift it, not from hunger, but because the bread feels like a paving stone with ambition. It gives off both hope and a real risk of internal damage. Before you take a bite, someone nearby whispers, "Don't bite it yet." Locals always soak it in wine first to soften it, or use it for self-defense. You turn to see a man with a thick beard holding a loaf just like yours, though his looks like it was issued 3 days earlier. He pulls it from his sleeve and points to a dent in the crust. "Last night I used this to block a hit from my sister. Still works fine." You glance down at your bread and realise you're holding a piece of ancestral weaponry. And in that moment it becomes clear why Roman bread never comes with butter, but really should come with a shield. You find a place to sit. The morning breeze drifts in and makes everything feel temporarily manageable. Around you, people are having breakfast with the expression of students taking their final exams. An old man takes a bite, then taps the loaf with a stone. It is unclear whether he's invoking inspiration or summoning divine intervention. A woman beside him rubs her bread on her palm, perhaps checking the location of an old scar. A boy nearby gnaws in sync with his breathing as if each breath is a truce between humanity and carbohydrates. You inhale, then bite. A soft crack echoes, like the sound of a fragile belief breaking. There is no pain, but your teeth are no longer confident. You attempt the ancient technique. You dip it in wine. Here the wine is called Posca, a drink made from wine water and some leftover faith. The first sip tastes like kissing a wound you never meant to revisit. The second is easier, or perhaps your cells are starting to accept low-level extinction. The bread remains firm, but this time you do not panic. You look around and see that everyone here is just like you. They are not eating out of hunger. They are eating because this is the only thing in their life that has not crumbled completely. The baker woman turns to you. "All good, son." You nod as you chew. A tear escapes your eye. Not from emotion, but because the crack in your gum just sent out a formal complaint. An older man at the next table leans over. First time. Wait a bit. She has a round cheese coming later that hits like a cobblestone. One bite and you'll start thinking about your ex. You ask. Because it hurts that much, he laughs. No, because you usually cannot speak afterwards. In the distance, a group of young men are holding a contest. The rules are simple. Chew the bread without dipping it. Winners get applause. Losers are carried off on wooden stretchers. The narrator in your head whispers. If this is how they start the day, lunch might involve swallowing bricks whole. You finish your breakfast. It is unclear whether the bread has diminished or your gums have given up protesting. You take another sip of Posca. A warmth spreads through your chest. It could be satisfaction. It could be your stomach reacting to a substance that science refuses to classify. Either way, you've done the impossible. You have had breakfast in Rome, you survived, you saved most of your teeth, and your pride is still breathing. Barely. You stand up, brush the breadcrumbs off your knees, and tell yourself, "All right, Gaius, time to work, whatever that means today." At least it is not bread. You rise from the breakfast stone bench, mouth still tingling from your recent standoff with carbohydrates, and step out into the street. There is no takeaway coffee. No morning playlist floating out of a brunch cafe. No phone chirping a cheerful "have a productive day." Only the sound of footsteps, the groan of wooden clogs and wagon wheels, grinding against the stone like a tired romance forced to continue for lack of a divorce agreement. You blend into Rome's morning labour current, where each step is a verbal contract with survival. Rome has no air-conditioned offices, but it has sunlight slapping the back of your neck like a reminder. Work. No one's feeding that spine of yours for free. You glance around. An old woman is selling wild herbs rooted by a collapsing wall. A man pushes a cart of leather dry as his remaining patience. 3 kids are hauling flower baskets. They barely reach your chest, yet talk like veterans of cross-border salt trades. You slip past a group of stone haulers. They do not speak. They bow their heads and exhale in grunts as if forcing time forward with muscle. Farther down, an artisan paints on a wall with soot. He paints not for payment, but because his inner need for expression predates social media by 2,000 years. You navigate cobblestones shaped like childhood memories. No sidewalks, no warning signs, only personal agility and whispered prayers for each step. If you ever thought working overtime until 9 was the peak of misery, try dodging 3 ox carts, swerving past a drunk man, skipping rope with goat intestines and keeping your cheese loaf intact. In Rome, bread preservation is a survival skill. You tilt sideways to avoid a jug of water being dumped from a second floor, and sigh. If only I could just swipe my badge and join a Zoom call. Instead, you swipe your eyes across a butcher woman and receive in return a Latin insult loosely translating to, "What are you staring at?" Got a dead cow at home. And then like fate wrapped in a tunic that still smells faintly of stale bread. Someone taps your shoulder. No interview, no offer, no onboarding. Just the sentence sewer duty today. You nod. No reaction. No negotiation. Because in Rome no one declines sewer work and lives long enough to explain why. You follow the crew. They wear no uniforms. Only a shared look. Wet brown shirts. Clouded eyes. Postures shaped by the weight of a city's forgotten memories. You begin to feel something stirring in your chest. Not emotion. Worry for your immune system. You have not yet arrived, but your body knows. Rome does not have fixed work hours. Its only deadline is called when the sun reaches the top. And when it does, good luck, Gaius. You walk behind the team leader, an old man named Marcus, hunched like a question mark, but with eyes like full stops. He carries a wooden stick tapping for sinkholes and tapping on your conscience at the same time. Life may not be long, but these drains are deep. Your team has 5 people. No one speaks on the way to the sewer mouth, not because of fatigue, because speaking might make you accidentally inhale. The drain opening sits beneath the steps of the Temple of Jupiter, a placement that fully reflects the local theology. Prayers above, waist below, you look down. A square pit deep as doubt, black as a moonless night, quiet in a way that seems to whisper, "Do not make me remind you what I have held." The smell does not rise, it breathes. A damp-layered breath that carries the memories of meals long predating Julius Caesar's calendar. It moves slowly around your collar, tiptoes into your palms, then pauses right beneath your nose, asking softly, "Are you sure you lift your bucket?" A wooden one cracked along the side, yet proud like a retired soldier. Not intact, but still worth remembering. You lean down and reach into a liquid that should not legally be called water. The first feeling is cold. The second is warm. The third is a sudden holy gratitude for 21st century plumbing. You scoop, you pour, you knock on the rim to chase out the rats. The rats here are not afraid of humans. They have lineages. Some have seen gods. One walks past your foot, pauses and looks you up and down. You get the sense that it is conducting an interview. You keep scooping, dragging, scraping, lifting. Each chunk floats off like a chapter no one dared write. Waiting for future scholars to decode based on texture, Lucius the tall man beside you never speaks, only breathes. Each inhale sounds like a peace treaty with the past. When he sees you tremble, he places a hand on your shoulder. His hand is large, warm, and coated in something. You do not ask. Gaius. He says this is where no one looks, but everything flows from here. If you cannot love the sewers, you will never understand the city. You almost laugh, but you hold it back. Your lips are sealed, trying not to taste the air. Lucius's words stay with you, not because of the wisdom, because the smell has not left either. You work until noon. Your back aches. Your hands are coated. Your eyes blur, unsure if you're staring at mud or social residue. You do not feel tired. You feel like you're speaking to a layer of history no one else dares to touch. When Marcus waves to signal the end, you collapse onto the stone ground. No applause, no congratulations, but the wind through the sewer mouth softens slightly, as if the city just thanked you with a gentle exhale. You have survived. You have scooped waste-raked history and communicated silently with layers of memory never officially recorded. Your hands remain unwashed, but your soul feels oddly clean. In Rome, people do not work to be remembered. They work so that each time they rise from the pit, they know they are still alive, still standing, and still able to recognize what just passed by their nose. You leave your workplace with the walk of someone who has had an intimate conversation with the sewer system of an empire and received a loving reply from a century-old sediment. The sun stretches the shadows of crumbling columns like apologies sent to the wrong person. Its light falls slanted across your cheek, leaving a smudge of amber, as if someone smeared peach jam across the sky and forgot to wipe it off. Wind slips through your tunic, now darkened by dust, and life, carrying the bubbling sound of a shaken wine jar, the groan of wooden wheels grinding over ancient stone, a donkey braying some grammatical tragedy of philosophy, and somewhere in the distance the scattered laughter of someone who has fallen and has not yet realized it. Everything around you is alive. Everything moves, yet none of it agrees to move in the same direction. Rome's streets do not divide into left-right or yielding lanes, because every living creature on this stone believes it is in more of a hurry than all the others. You descend the slope toward the great square where traffic, daily life, sin and regret come together in a parade that needs no director. Ahead of you, an old woman threatens a street musician with his own instrument. To your left, an ox cart is being steered by the intense gaze of a child who recently weaned off milk. And right behind you, a man is walking backward, shouting the name of his ex with all the passion of someone who missed his chance at therapy. You do not walk faster than them. You simply walk slow enough for your dodges to resemble folk dancing practiced before the invention of history. You slip between 2 wooden carts like someone drifting between 2 early afternoon naps. You know the danger, but feel it is time to pass through anyway. You tilt your body to avoid a bundle of greens falling from above. It twirls in the air like it is illustrating a love song that never found the right rhythm and lands squarely on a donkey's head. The donkey pauses as if reconsidering its career. Rome's traffic system has only one signal: volume. Whoever yells louder gets to cross. Whoever screams longer earns the right to turn left without looking. And whoever sings should be ready with a soft apology. If someone once told you that leaving the office at 6 and squeezing into an elevator with tote bags that say you can do it is the height of daily hardship, invite them to cross a Roman intersection at this hour. Ox carts, tailors, baskets of eggs, oil lamps, and 3 circulating curses are all competing for a space the size of a half-finished dream. You press forward with all the wisdom gathered since leaving the latrine that morning. Your legs may ache, the smell may trail each step, but your heart smiles gently. Because perhaps in this chaos Rome is teaching you something. Those who dodge in time keep living. Those who stop in time get to tell the story. And those who dodge while smiling become true Romans. You move on through a stretch known as the rest of Rome, a place not detailed on any map yet fully illustrated by life itself. Here public space is not defined by signs, fences or rules. Every gap between cartwheels, every hoof slide, every sigh becomes an opportunity. To plant a dream, or to open a dried fish stall. Near the edge of the road, an old man threads a needle, while sitting cross-legged on a wooden crate like he is preparing for a ritual. His granddaughter uses rainwater filtered through hope to wash her hair. In another corner, children play a game where they throw nutshells at each other's faces. Each hit erupts in laughter as if they just won a blindfolded knife-throwing contest. A cheese seller sits next to a soap pot, not for hygiene but as a warning to customers who push their luck. This price is my conscience speaking. Push lower, and I will wash my feet in front of you. You sidestep a couple arguing over who deserves the bed tonight. The husband screams while slapping a herring against the side of a pastry cart. In that moment, the herring becomes legal counsel for both parties. Further along, you spot a street artist sketching portraits of passers-by on slabs of stone. Every subject ends up with a hooked nose, a receding chin, and a cryptic message in badly spelled Greek. You're also drawn, and to be honest, the portrait captures your current posture of neck tension and quiet existential doubt quite accurately. The streets of Rome do not separate what is alive from what is on display. Whoever has something puts it out. A group of slaves hum while carrying flower baskets like auditioning for a dance troupe. A woman reads aloud an old love letter in the middle of the street like a public confession. Farther down, 2 men with cloaks wrapped around their heads duel with brooms and sticks to the crowd's cheers, all for possession of a rickety bamboo chair someone left behind. You stop, lean slightly against a stone wall. A wall that still feels cool, covered in moss, capable of keeping secrets. It recently witnessed a salt cellar cry for 5 minutes after breaking his pot. It has seen sunsets dissolve, dinners break apart, and envelopes of bribes passed quietly to guards. You breathe, slowly, and think. Today's world installs cameras across cities to track every motion and behaviour. Here all you have to do is stand in one street corner long enough, and you will know the social hierarchy, marital status, occupations and sleep deprivation levels of everyone around. Rome needs no surveillance system. Rome only needs its streets, and time. You only need to stay calm, keep your breathing steady, and leave a small open space in your heart to welcome things that are strange, yet uncannily familiar. Things that remind you of a world you once called home. Rome in the afternoon does not grow quieter like polite cities, where everything ends in golden light and a whisper of classical music. Rome speaks up. It crows, it grumbles, it whistles, it pants. It howls, it mumbles, and sometimes it whispers directly into your neck. Sounds spill from all directions, shoving each other like sound waves trying to claim real estate. A voice slices through the air like a fishbone caught in your throat. Anyone wants second-hand ash-lined sandals no one has worn. A scream follows. I wore them first, you liar. There is a rumbling sound from a cart trembling at the edge of a pothole that smells like conservative thinking. There is the slap of a hand fan against a thigh, the tap of a spoon on the rim of a pot, and someone tripping over a cat's leg only to scold themselves in the voice of a distant neighbour lady. Behind you, someone is playing a flute made from what seems to be a hollow bone. The notes sound like a soul trapped inside a bottle that no one has opened yet. You hear a man telling a joke. He only gets as far as 3 hunters walk into, before a sneeze from the left side of the street cuts in, and the entire story shifts to a discussion about respiratory health. The air carries something that might be called a scent, but only if you add a question mark to it. It is not quite floral, it is not exactly edible, It's a blend of freshly dried fabric that never fully dried crushed grapes, mixed with longing burnt lamb fat with affectionate scolding, and something else that smells like an immoral intention that never got acted upon. You breathe in short, cautious bursts, sipping air as if it were condensed wind. This wind slips into your tunic and wakes up parts of your memory that should never be opened before sunset. With each step you carry a ripple of scent collisions. Dried fish sulking at uncovered cheese charcoal smoke competing with the armpit odour of a philosopher selling sad poems. You tilt your head trying to find a neutral patch of air. But Rome does not offer neutral. Rome only has scents that make you remember and scents that make you never forget. And in the middle of all that you find yourself smiling. Not because you enjoy it, but because your face has begun to adapt by twitching at random. Someday, if you return to your own century and stand at a modern intersection trapped between a Starbucks and 3 competing gym playlists, you might recall this. Rome had a smell like this, but at least it was real. You slow down your pace, not because your legs are tired, but because everything around you is charging forward like tomorrow is not a market day, but the apocalypse with a contest to see who bumps into whom first. Collisions in Rome are not accidents. They are a form of communication. A jab of the knee into your side might mean good morning. A soft forehead bump between 2 mothers might confirm that their children are both in love with the same basket seller. A thud of vegetables on your shoulder with an exhale means you are standing in the wrong air current. You duck as a bundle of straw flies past. You lean as a basket falls off someone's shoulder. You're not sure if it was an accident or an opinion. Your shoulder turns. Your head ducks on instinct. Your foot stops half a beat before an old man in slick sandals glides past, moving like thunder wearing a tunic. Romans do not walk. They glide, pivot, weave, recoil, and continue as if they all graduated from a circus school but were expelled for being too expressionless. No one explains after a bump. The person hit never looks back. The person doing the hitting stares off into the distance, as if the blame belongs to the structure of the universe. The most common phrase in these moments is not sorry. It is, the gods decided so. You try to walk fast once and you quickly realise this is a challenge to the combined height gravity and determination of the Roman population. A potter spins around and nearly dumps a tray of tools into your tunic. A grape-selling girl backs away from a donkey cart and steps on your foot gently, as if to say, stand still too long here, and that's on you. Rome trains dodging from childhood. Children learn to bend their knees when their mother yells from a distance. Teenagers practice leaning sideways when a friend gets rejected in public. The elderly do not dodge anymore, they simply stand still. Everything else learns to move around them because no one wants to start trouble with someone who has survived 3 plagues and a market fire. You keep moving. Your entire body finds a rhythm, left hand loose, right eye scanning, shoulder tilted into the wind that carries cheese past its prime. It becomes a survival dance. No music, just the occasional grunt serving as a drum beat. In the split second between 2 dodges, you remember the escalators in your own century. People lining up, neatly staring at phones, avoiding each other according to little yellow floor stickers. Rome does not use stickers. Rome throws you into the middle of the street and sees how long you last. You think you have adapted to Rome. The physical bumps, the sound collisions, even the smell. But wait, you have just bumped into the hardest kind of impact to avoid. Social collision. The first hit is a look. You accidentally step between a young noble chewing grapes as slowly as if recalling his family lineage and an embroidery seller laying out cloth like she owns the street through ancestral deed. The noble glances at you, not with hostility but with an altitude that makes the back of your neck crave a warm hand. The woman hisses, step aside. Your eyes are not worthy of looking at this fabric. You step back. A breeze brushes the back of your neck, carrying just enough power to remind you that you're standing in the wrong class. Up ahead, a senator in dark silk that looks borrowed from a half-finished manuscript points a finger at a cart driver. Not because the cart was wrong, but because a wheel flicked mud onto the edge of his robe which once starred in a poem. Through clenched teeth he growls, "I have eaten grapes planted by Caesar himself." Your eyes are too young to gaze upon this garment. You glance down at your tunic, and in that moment the coarse fabric seems to slump, admitting it is not cut out for conversation. You continue walking. On your shoulder is a silence made of awkwardness. At your feet, baskets of tomatoes are being priced by a system. Pale customers negotiate. Darker ones are invited to move along. You ask yourself, Maybe value lies in who gets to look first. A child slides past yelling paw at you, then runs to his mother's honey stall. You do not get angry. You just notice that the honey tastes bitter today. Not because of the bees, but because the social air around them has become too dense. Too many old lives. Not enough space for new ones to breathe. While dodging a basket, twisting your shoulder to keep a jug upright and smiling to avoid getting caught in a stranger's argument, you think of the world you came from. A world that divided people by office glass leather chairs and the thickness of their business cards. In Rome, one long stare, one delayed reply, one stain on your sleeve. That is all it takes to know where you stand. You lower your head slightly as you pass someone who seems to stand higher in the unspoken hierarchy. Not out of fear, but because you have already learned the first lesson of Roman afternoons. Those who know when to bow move forward. Those who wait to be acknowledged may spend a lifetime standing still. And you, Gaius, who have once touched the bottom of a sewer and looked up just in time, you understand something else. Some collisions do not hurt right away, but will echo in your thoughts long after you have returned to your little room on the 4th floor. You see it clearly now. You have just dodged a glance layered with inherited contempt, slipped past a row of cheeses steeped in olfactory bias, and were about to duck into a side alley just to breathe. But Rome never lets anyone breathe in peace. The light begins to tilt. Not the gentle tilt of a dreamy sunset. This is the kind of light that plans a quiet exit, leaving behind an urgent message. From this point on, those who know the way home should hurry. You look up. The sky has turned a shade of violet, streaked as if brushed by a hand that held both charcoal and oil. The corner where you stand glows faintly, like someone was about to light a lantern, then change their mind to save the oil. The sound of people begins to thin. Noise pulls back like water after a hesitant storm. Only the wind remains, slipping through narrow alleys, sounding like an old woman whispering a final story to the stone walls who still remember how to listen. You step gradually away from the main street, dodging a late vegetable cart and avoiding the gaze of a bracelet seller whose eyes seem to sell a little extra karma on the side. You understand now that Rome at night does not light up. Rome at night tightens its grip. If Rome in the morning is as loud as social media at peak hour and Rome in the afternoon feels like a meeting without a moderator, then Rome at night is a group chat with only 2 people still online, you and your suspicion. You think back to the world you once lived in, a place where streetlights shone all the way to the elevator lobby, where people stared into their phones and still found the right turn thanks to GPS. Here you turn right because of a hunch, and you pray because you have no idea whose turn it really is. Darkness in Rome is never complete. It has gaps, it leaves space to breathe, but it also has opinions. You feel eyes following you, not aggressive, just persistent. You hear footsteps behind you, not fast, but steady, and you ask yourself quietly, did I drop something? Or worse, did I leave someone behind? Rome by night is no wider than Rome by day. But the dark makes every alley feel like it has its own personality. This city is not for slow thinkers, because every hesitation is a missed step. It is not for loud shoes, because footsteps are considered advance notice for trouble. And it is absolutely not for anyone who likes shortcuts. In Rome, shortcuts are rarely designed to get you there faster. They exist to make you disappear more efficiently. And here you are, Gaius. You have stared down a communal sponge stick under a collective gaze. You have chewed bread like it was philosophy for beginners. You have spoken to the sewers like they were the diary of your abandoned childhood, and you have backed away from a stare that came with a tax bracket. Now you are facing a turn that is not on the map and was never part of your survival plan. You swallow. Not from fear, but because your throat needs someone to agree with it. You lift your head. Not to see, but to remind yourself that you're still upright. You listen. Not for sound, but for signs. Then you take a step forward, as if your legs are also testing your resolve. Rome has not gone to sleep. It is simply pretending to nap just to see who dares open the next door. And you, Gaius, are you really going to sleep now? You turn into a narrow alley. Not because you want to, but because honestly, what choice do you have left? The alley is as thin as the gap between the teeth of an old woman who survived 3 eras of chaos. The stone walls are as cold as promises people forgot to keep, and the wind brushes past you like it already knows what you're carrying and just wants to give you a heads up. That thing in your pocket, you're about to lose it. You walk slowly. Your own steps make only the softest sound. But there is another step even softer, and it does not go away. You try to stop walking. The footsteps behind you come to a halt as well. You take a breath in, let it out, and turn your head. You do it slowly, giving your neck a chance to prepare for a possible farewell. A young man stands there. His hands are empty. His eyes carry a smile. His mouth curves into something strangely close to polite professionalism. "Hey there, I got lost. Lost in your thoughts, and also in the inner pocket of your jacket. No need for you to reach. I'll help myself. Much less awkward that way." Before you can decide whether you've just been flirted with or robbed, his hand brushes past you like wind gliding over a receipt. It's swift light and doesn't require a signature. You blink. The wallet is gone, but your trust remains behind, resting in your chest as a shallow dent. Faint, but permanent. He smiles once more, gives a slight bow like an actor taking applause, even though the curtain has not yet fallen. Only your wallet has. Thanks, Gaius. You really know how to leave things exactly where they belong. Then he turns left, with the speed of a decision made after too little sleep. You don't move. You're not confused, not angry. You're just aware that your heart feels one layer thinner and your wisdom one layer thicker. Back in your old world, people installed tracking chips in their phones. Here in Rome, you tuck intuition into your waistband, hide your trust behind your ankle, and hope it sounds the alarm before anything falls. You don't shout. You don't give chase. Because you know deep down, Rome at night is no place for people who still believe justice takes shortcuts. You take one small step backward, then you breathe. Just deep enough to calm the sting, just light enough not to trigger new trouble. You keep walking. Your pockets feel lighter, your eyes more alert, and your heart beats steady. Like someone who has just understood Rome never meant to frighten you. It simply wanted to see if you had anything left to lose. The wind brushes your shoulder. It doesn't sneak in. It moves past you like an old friend who once stole something but comes back just to pat you on the back and say, "You're good." You passed your first night. And you realise in this city where everyone has lost something, a wallet, a lover, a peaceful afternoon, no one ever asks why. They only wonder quietly what else you've just walked down an alley and left your wallet behind. Your heart is thinner now, and the world around you has gone still as if it just saw what happened and nodded in quiet approval. That was the warm-up. Now comes the real part. Nobody calls out to sell you fish. Nobody asks for a back scratch or for your belief to change. Everything gently recedes like a choir that has sung its final note and stepped softly into the dark to watch what you'll do next. The wind no longer slips beneath your collar, it loops around instead. It stops by your cheek and taps you with the fingertip of memory. You know this moment. It is when Rome begins to speak, but only in a language understood by those who have lost something, been wrongly blamed, or once chewed through stale bread and swallowed it anyway. You pass aging walls. Each stone remembers the face of someone who once leaned in and whispered something incomplete. A crack on your right tilts ever so slightly as if it witnessed a promise that never came true. It still wants to tell the story, but has not yet found someone who deserves it. Above you, floorboards creak gently. You look up and see a door just barely open. Its light spills out like egg yolk dripping from the shell. Someone inside is still awake. Maybe it's a grandmother stitching up an old coat. Maybe it's a husband lying awake haunted by unpaid debts. Maybe it's a young man who never found the right moment to say "I love you." Or maybe it's just a rat chewing through the lamp cord. Still, there's a kind of romance in that too. You walk beneath a low rooftop stained with the smoke of unfinished dinners. The smell clings to the air like Rome has boiled a leftover bone of memory just enough to make someone's eyes sting without knowing why. If your old world had nights lit like exposed spreadsheets, Rome at this hour glows only with reluctance. Every shaft of light seems to whisper, "What makes you worthy of me? Believe this." Rome's light this late only reveals itself to those who walk, slowly breathe gently and know how to be seen without having to look. You turn into a narrower path. Arched bricks, chipped stone. Your breath bounces off your forehead, echoing back like a note left by your own spirit. Careful now. This next part is where Rome tells its own stories, and you hear it. Rome whispers in the brush of a branch against a wall, in the quiet steps of someone who changed their mind and didn't show up, in the kind of silence that appears only when you desperately need to hear something. You stop. You inhale. You exhale a sentence that never quite becomes sound, and you understand. Rome has stopped trying to rob you tonight. Now it sits beside you, says nothing, extends a hand and offers you a stillness that fits perfectly into the part of you that just went missing. You walk onto a street holding its breath for someone else. The lamps remain unlit. The wind has already informed them this place does not need light to show you who people truly are. The walls on both sides are cracked like half-told stories carved with fingertips. No one knows whose. Rome hasn't said yet. You keep walking, not because you are afraid, but because your feet want to hear the rest of the tale. The wind brushes your neck. No howl. Just the whisper of a question as soft as the whisker of a cat that once belonged to someone. When your wallet disappeared, did all of you remain whole? A window opens ahead. Its light spills out like overboiled egg yolk. Golden, gentle, a little bittersweet. Perhaps inside is an old man telling his oil lamp about a mistake he made at 17. And yes, the lamp knows how to nod. The brick wall beside you leans to one side like someone who waited too long and decided to grow old right there. A rooftop sags softly like an apology that never made it into words. The faint scent of ash rises just strong enough to make your memory whisper the name of a cold dinner no one finished. By now you understand. Rome doesn't teach through lectures. It lets you bump into the old wounds of strangers until one of them feels a little too familiar. Ahead there is a gate. Its wooden latch is loose, but it stands upright like someone who once lied here but still closed the door with dignity. You pause. You breathe deep. Your chest nudges the air which seems to be lost in thought. No one needs to call your name. Rome already knows. You just grew up by half a street. You arrive at the bottom of your stairs like a warrior who won a battle, not by strategy, but simply by making it home. Your foot lands on the first step. Stone meets stone. The sound is something like two old men inviting each other to sleep early. Each creak from the wooden stairs under your feet is soft, but its tone is unmistakable. Where have you been all day bringing home the full scent of Rome? You let out a soft laugh. Not because you are amused, but because your back has reached the point where laughter is the last functioning self-repair mechanism. You open the door. The worn wooden handle faces you looking as if it might be thinking back early tonight. Usually people who get mugged wander around a bit first. The room greets you with the familiar scent of humans and postponed decisions. Your 3 roommates are all present. One snores, one scratches, and one sleep talks to an old dream. The far wall still leans the same way it always has. The kind of tilt that says I could collapse, but I'll wait until you kids grow up first. You walk past the old mat, the same spot where your body lay this morning like a loaf of bread no one bet on. It is still there now with an extra crease, a trace of sun from a forgotten window, and a single strand of hair that somehow joined the lunch party uninvited. You sit down gently like someone trying not to disturb even themselves. Your back meets the wall. The wall presses lightly against your youth. It does not hurt, but it reminds you of yesterday and all the days that never got a name. You exhale. You sigh. You breathe just enough for your tunic to twitch slightly as if saying, "All right, you made it. Now wash me." Someone is rinsing their hands out by the kitchen. The water trickles like Rome applauding softly after checking your report card for the day. You listen to that sound and smile faintly. It's the kind of applause your ex might give when they see you are still alive but no longer clueless. You rest your arm on your pillow. It is as stiff as the back of someone who once borrowed money from you and never paid it back. Not soft, but at least it waited for you, and you lie down. Rome seeps out of you slowly like steam leaving a pot of soup after the flame is off, but the warmth refuses to go. You close your eyes. Your heart feels empty the way a full meal leaves just enough space for a bit of tomorrow. Not quite hunger, just enough to call it room for more life. You lie still, not exactly to sleep, but to let your body negotiate with your mind and whisper, "Today was enough." The room on the 4th floor has not changed its shape. Still tight, still tilted, still with that one shirt hanging at the wrong angle, casting a shadow on your forehead, like Rome still has something left to say. The breeze slips through the old brick vent. If you have lived here long enough, you will know it is not a sound. It is the memory of the city stretching its limbs. You know there are days that feel like living, but only when you finally lie down after a true Roman day do you understand that living is a heavy verb, not something you are just handed. You used to belong to another world, where phones glowed brighter than the moon, where emojis replaced eye contact, where expired feelings got deleted from the archive, a place where you lost sleep over things no one had even taken yet, where you ran hard after a life you were never quite sure belonged to you. But here Rome took a little from you. A bit of strength, a bit of wallet, a bit of pride, a bit of trust, and then quietly it handed you back something else. Tougher, heavier. and just wise enough to know when to smile. You breathe evenly. No one is rushing to take that breath from you. The oil lamp in the alley dims slowly like a belated nod, and Rome, you can feel it is sitting beside you, with arms folded, legs crossed gently across the weight of time. No words of encouragement, no badge of survival, no caption that says Gaius made it through. Just quiet breath beside yours, letting you come to understand something for yourself. One day survived here is worth 10 days of simply existing in a place where no one remembers that you were alive. You smile. Under a blanket that is not quite warm on a mat no one has ever mistaken for a bed in a city that never says sorry. You who once hated crowds, feared dirt, and hesitated around anything without a name tag have just completed a day that was deeply and undeniably real. And just before you drift off, Rome somehow places a sentence in your mind. Soft as worn linen but stitched by someone who has known life's heaviness. No one will ask how many followers you had. They will only ask, did you ever reach the bottom in a single day and still decide to keep walking? How does it feel to have lived completely in the skin of a stranger in a city that never explains itself and never applauds when you survive? Now you understand. Rome never asked who you wanted to become. It simply guided you through every feeling that needed remembering. So by the time night arrived, you would not need anything grand, only the quiet certainty you lived. Truly. One full day. Sleep well, Gaius. And if tomorrow you wake and Rome is still lingering somewhere in your memory, then maybe Rome is remembering you too. Quietly. Deeply.